I think Bank of America has what's called like I think a 2, 3, 4 policy where it's basically so Bank of America doesn't have a hard limit on the number of credit cards you can hold, but I believe they have application restrictions for how many cards you can apply for in a given time frame. So like you can apply for 2 cards in a 2-month frame, 3 cards in a 12-month frame, and 4 cards in a 24-month period. So if you're careful and you time your applications properly, and you're not in a rush to use these Alaska miles, but you want to accrue them for a big trip, you can certainly do that just by kind of strategically signing up for them and then waiting a certain period to sign up again for that card or for the business version.
Hey there, points people! You just heard a clip from Juan Ruiz from Double Duty Daddy. Juan has been writing and editing stories involving credit cards, loyalty programs, and travel for more than 10 years, in addition to working and contributing to a number of outlets including The Points Guy, Forbes, CNN, and Upgraded Points. He's traveled to 39 countries across 6 continents and utilizes points and miles to take his family around the world. In this episode, Juan and I discuss tips for traveling with multiple kids, why Alaska miles are so hard to come by, and why you shouldn't sleep on them for long-haul flights from the US to Asia. Juan and I also talk about using Alaska miles to fly on Cathay Pacific, but if you don't have Alaska miles, you can get the same experience using American airline miles. And if you need more American airline miles, you might consider the City Advantage Executive World Elite MasterCard. Remember, if you decide to apply for the American Airlines card or any other card, never apply directly through Google. Always try to use a friend or creator's referral link. If you're interested in supporting this show when you apply for your next card, check out geobreezetravel.com/cards. And if you're not sure what card is right for you, I offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. And we have links to the City Advantage World Elite MasterCard and the free consultation form for you in the show notes as well. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So let's get hacking. Hey Juan, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast.
Hi Julia, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. We are going to talk about Alaska Airlines, which I don't think we've really ever talked about in the hundreds some episodes that we've launched so far. We're going to talk about some of the great products you can book with that, including Japan Airlines, Cathay Pacific, and so much more. But before we jump into all of that, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into the wonderful game of points?
Sure. So I've always been a deal finder, someone that wants to get like the best bang for your buck or try to find like value in things. And about in 2012, I worked at a university, worked in higher ed, and I simply wanted to just travel more beyond just like short trips. I'm based out of South Florida, so I was looking at trying to fly more to Europe, fly more to Asia. I had been many times before, but I wanted to do it on a regular basis. And I just started Googling ways to fly using points and miles, and obviously realizing that the main driver of all this is credit cards. And I worked really hard at preserving my credit score through my teenage years and the college years that were, I was broke and not really being supported. I had to support myself. So a lot of times I was struggling with the credit score thing, but I knew that it was imperative that I had a good score so that I can sign up for cards. And after 1 or 2 signups and redeeming those points, I was hooked.
How did you get into writing for Upgraded Points and CNN and so many other different publications?
Well, it actually all started with in 2013, where I found out that my wife and I were expecting a child. And we found out we were actually going to be having twins, which was a shocker to our system. And because I have this unhealthy travel habit or desire of wanting to travel all the time, I really started becoming almost a self-taught expert in the world of travel rewards and credit cards and points and miles. And I started a blog called doubledutydaddy.com. And it was just about kind of chronicling my life as a dad of twins, but also sharing things about helping families travel the world using these points and miles. And that led to opportunities to freelance for publications such as The Points Guy, Miles to Memories, Upgraded Points. And then once that happened, I just started leveraging those opportunities into bigger opportunities with more household name publications. So yeah, it was basically a self-taught thing that I started young, and not young, but like 10 plus years ago. It's grown to where it is now.
What are some of your top tips for somebody who's traveling with twin infants or children? How old are they now?
My girls are 9, but I have a baby that's a year old, so I have 3 girls. And obviously, traveling with twins is a lot more challenging than traveling with one child. But either way, it's challenging as it is. My biggest recommendation is it will be stressful, and there will be moments where you're going to feel like, wow, I can't believe we're doing this, but it'll be all worth it at the end. And I think that a lot of times it's just getting over that mental hurdle of like saying, let's do this, let's book this trip, and let's make it happen, regardless of how difficult it might be to deal with a baby on a plane or at the hotel or get out of our element or our routine. Once you push yourself to that and you start doing that a couple times, you almost become like an expert at traveling with children. It just takes that initial hump to get over that.
Are there any particular airline programs or hotel programs that make this especially easier for families, especially families who have multiple children in tow?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me personally, because I'm a big Hyatt fan, so I would accrue Chase Ultimate Reward points and use those points to transfer to Hyatt. Hyatt's award chart is very generous. It doesn't require that many points compared to Hilton or Marriott to redeem for a free night. So I would sign up for Chase cards. This was the days before 524, and you can apply for multiple Chase cards. And then you can use those points to transfer to Hyatt and book free nights. So my hotel nights were essentially covered by these points. And that was a great way to, let's say I wanted to stay domestically, or say I wanted to go to Orlando or Tampa or the Keys. I didn't have to pay for a flight, so I could just use my points to cover a hotel stay and essentially minimize my costs drastically. So yeah, I would tell you that's always kind of been like a main strategy of mine, was to accrue points to cover hotel costs with
For
families.
sure.
Mhm.
Any airline programs that are good for families?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty. I mean, I don't fly Southwest often, but I think Southwest has great deals, great points deals. There's no first or business class cabins, so everyone's in the same boat. The redemptions are relatively low, so families can redeem their points for multiple tickets in the family. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then on top of that, you can actually their boarding process. As much as some people don't like it, families benefit from it because they get to board, I believe, after Group A boarding, so that's pretty off. Good for them. I also think that British Airways Avios are a very, very important airline currency to focus on for families, particularly because um, all the transfer partners like Amex and Chase and Citi transfer to British Airways. But the key with that is that booking travel with British Airways doesn't necessarily mean you're flying British Airways themselves. You can be booking an American Airlines flight and booking it with British Airways Avios, and you'll save significantly less miles than if you were to book that same AA flight with AA miles. It's a little bit convoluted, a little bit complex, but I booked a lot of awards out of Miami to the Caribbean, to, let's say, Turks and Caicos or the Bahamas, using Avios, and it would cost me like 9,000 Avios one way for that American Airlines flight, whereas American Airlines wants 20,000 for that same award, and that's thanks to their One World partnership. You're allowed to book American Airlines flights with British Airways. So families can save a ton of points that way, and also, get some award seats that would have cost you a lot more miles for a lot less.
That is such a good sweet spot to use British Airways to fly to the Caribbean. A lot of people, when they're looking directly from Chicago or New York to the Caribbean, it can be, or especially the West Coast, it can be really expensive, but it's not too bad to get to Miami. And so if you can
Correct.
spend a night in Miami and then just piece together two things and kind of do a positioning to your last leg, that can save you a ton of points if you do that British Airways trick.
That's a brilliant addition, and I appreciate you saying that, because a positioning flight is clutch if you want to reap those sweet spots. So like I might not do this, but like Iberia, for example, out of Boston to Madrid charges, I forgot the amount of Avios, but it's a very low amount. So if I really wanted to save points, I can fly from Miami to Boston on a cheap cash fare and then book with Avios from Boston to Madrid and get to Madrid for pennies on the dollar, because I'm using these points that are a very low amount to get there. So yeah, I agree with you, Julie, 100%. It's clutch to use Avios for sweet spots, especially short haul flights.
Oh yeah, that Madrid thing, you can get there for what, 34,000 points from the East Coast in business class. So
In
it's
business.
cheap.
It's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet.
Let's talk about some Alaska sweet spots. How do people get Alaska miles and what can you do with them?
So Alaska miles are pretty hard to obtain, but you can grab some Alaska miles with the Alaska co-branded cards. They have Alaska Airlines Visa Signature credit card, and then they have a business version of the card. These miles are extremely underrated because you can travel, you can use Alaska miles to fly in all different partners. Some partners include Cathay Pacific business class from the US to Hong Kong for 50,000 Alaska miles. So one sign-up bonus on that card can easily cover you one-way business class ticket from the US to Hong Kong that probably costs in the like in between anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000. You're only spending 50,000. That's a sweet spot. But Alaska also has multiple partners. They have multiple partnerships with other airlines that are even non-One World airlines. So there's other ways to book Alaska, like such as you could fly first class on Cathay Pacific. You can also book Qantas to Australia on business or first class for I think it's 70,000 Alaska miles. So my award space might be tough to find, but usually you could find about one seat or maybe two. There's so many other partners. You can fly Q Suites. Qatar Airways is award-winning Q Suites to the Middle East and Africa for I think 85,000 Alaska miles. So I'm just sad that I didn't recognize how valuable Alaska miles were early on. I realized Alaska miles were like one of the most underrated airline currencies. Like I think I realized it like 5 years ago. But it's been one of the top for savvy points and miles people. They've been accruing Alaska airline miles for a long time, and now I realize I should have been doing the same.
How do you accrue them for a long time if there's the only real way to get a lot of Alaska points at one time is with these co-branded cards, and there's a very limited number. There's like a personal and a
Yeah.
business card. Are there more than those?
No, that's pretty much it from what I know. But I will tell you that Alaska miles is the issuer is Bank of America, and so a lot of times folks will sign up for an Alaska card and they'll have it for a year, and then let's say they've gotten the sign up bonus and they'll close it, and then maybe like a couple months later they'll apply again and they'll get approved. So there's not necessarily a guarantee they'll get approved, but a lot of times that's how I've been able to amass a couple 100,000 Alaska miles. It's not from putting spend on the card; it's from signing up for the card multiple times in a specific time range.
What is the time range? Like, how fast can somebody churn through these? Does it have the rule of you can only get the sign up bonus every 24 months? Like a lot of the Chase cards have that, or the Chase Sapphire ones are 48 months, and the Amex cards just don't really let you do this unless there's some no
Yeah.
lifetime language.
Right. I think Bank of America has what's called like I think a 2, 3, 4 policy where it's basically so Bank of America doesn't have a hard limit on the number of credit cards you can hold, but I believe they have application restrictions for how many cards you can apply for in a given time frame. So like you can apply for 2 cards in a 2-month frame, 3 cards in a 12-month frame, and 4 cards in a 24-month period. So if you're careful and you time your applications properly, and you're not in a rush to use these Alaska miles, but you want to accrue them for a big trip, you can certainly do that just by kind of strategically signing up for them and then waiting a certain period to sign up again for that card or for the business version. And then you'll be able to definitely accrue enough Alaska miles that way to redeem for some pretty impressive trips.
How much do these kinds of trips cost? Because the sign up bonus for one of these cards is 70 or 80,000 points usually. Is that enough to get you to Asia, or what do you do with that?
Yeah. I mean, the Alaska one, like I mentioned, I actually, before the pandemic, I accrued 200,000 Alaska airline miles with 3 sign-up bonuses in total, and it cost me 50,000 miles to fly one way, as I mentioned earlier, to fly one way in business class from the U.S. to Hong Kong and then to Asia. So, because you can also fly to Asia and then fly to Hong Kong and then transfer to your city, either Bangkok, Singapore, Bali, wherever that is. So I wanted to take my whole family in business class because it's a long flight. And at that time, I had 5-year-old twin daughters. So I made it a point and a mission to accrue enough miles to be able to book 4 tickets in business class to Asia. And so, yeah, so accruing these Alaska miles at 50,000 per ticket was an incredible deal. And I made it my goal to accrue them early on, even though I had never flown Airlines at all, nor had I ever even thought about Alaska Airlines miles. So they're very valuable, incredibly valuable. Based on this example alone, I'm based out of Miami, and there's no Alaska flights here nonstop to Alaska or to Asia from here. So certainly the miles are an underrated currency that I think most people should accrue if you're looking for like a high aspirational redemption to Asia or to many other places around the world.
Tell us about the experience on a Cathay Pacific business class. What is it like?
Well, that trip got canceled because of the pandemic. However, I have flown Cathay first class before, and the experience is lovely. I mean, the seats are very cushioned, very large. The service is exceptional. I felt like I was sitting on a throne, to be quite honest with you. And I mean, I've experienced Japan Airlines and Cathay in Singapore, and it's all thanks to, and it's in first class in all those areas because of points and miles. Honestly, without it, it would have cost tens of thousands of dollars. So the experience is really sort of a dream come true for someone like me who values those type of experiences over maybe schlepping it in coach, which is nothing wrong with that. I fly coach the majority of the time, but for those long haul trips, I think it's a treat to fly those business and first class products that are coveted so much.
Did you get to experience the first class lounge in Hong Kong during that trip?
Yeah, I did a Hong Kong hopping trip where I just kind of like, I had like a couple hours at the lounge before my connection flight. So I went to the wing and I forgot all the names of them, but I went to every single Hong Kong Cathay Pacific airline lounge, and they were both exception. They were all exceptional. I went to 3. I think it was the Bridge. Forgot the names, Wing and another one, but all 3 of them were exceptional, and I enjoyed all 3. They all have something different to offer.
What do they have? Do they have like massages or like do they do your
Yeah,
hair? They do?
yeah. So they have no, they don't do their hair, but they have massages. They have these rest areas where you can legitimately fall asleep. It's not like a little uncomfortable like lounge chair. It's like they're like beds almost. There was dim sum, there was sushi, there was ramen, there was drinks, obviously, there's rest areas, there's massages. I don't know about getting your hair done because I don't have any hair, as you can tell. But for the most part, it was very luxurious. My wife isn't really like a lounge person. She'd rather just get to the airport like just before our flight and go on the plane. But she enjoyed it as well. She loved checking out the lounges with me. I mean, they're a step notch above what we have here in the U.S. Maybe Centurion lounges can compare, but not really. These lounges were catered to Cathay Pacific premium customers, and it was awesome.
That sounds amazing. It's still on my bucket list. I'm going to Hong Kong next year, but we're doing EVA Airways. So one day I'm going to do this with Cathay.
Oh, that's awesome. You're going to fly to Taipei, right? Through Taipei?
Yes. If you're looking to earn more points and miles, there are usually 2 main ways to get there. The first one is with credit card sign-up bonuses, where you can easily earn tens of thousands of points by putting your expenses on a new credit card. If you're in the market for a new credit card, we offer free credit card consultations and provide you with personalized recommendations based on your particular travel goals, budget, and lifestyle at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. But there are also a ton of ways to earn points outside of opening more cards. And we have some of my favorite methods like stacking, finding hidden bonus offers, and finding reimbursable spending strategies outlined in my free webinar called You Do Not Need 20 Cards. Check out the free webinar on geobreezetravel.com/webinar. And we have links to both the free consultation form and the free webinar for you in the show notes. And now, back to the show. So what are some other products that you can use Alaska Miles on other than Cathay Pacific?
You could fly American Airlines economy during off-peak. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alaska can get you to, I think, like, for example, Dallas to Seoul. You can get from Dallas to Seoul for 25,000 Alaska miles, or I think it's 20,000 miles, which is less than 25 that American would want for that same ticket. So that's an option. You can get cheap domestic flights, honestly. Alaska also has wonderful award space and award availability to to Hawaii from the West Coast too. So you could reach roughly around 12,500 points that you can get there that way. I haven't redeemed Alaska Miles for a lot of other things besides long haul. So, but I know that you can use Alaska Miles for a lot of partner flights. So again, like Cathay Pacific, Japan Airlines, American Airlines, Tom. So there's many ways to use your Alaska Miles for multiple different airlines and different routes. So they're really, really diverse and versatile. You can use them for a lot of different reasons.
I once upon a time had a bout of shiny card syndrome, which I know I always tell people not to do, but long ago it happened to me. And I saw the large sign-up bonus on an Alaska card. And I'm like, these points are hard to get. So I jumped on the card and then sat on the points for about 2 years, not knowing what to do with them. I finally redeemed them. We are flying from Japan over to Malaysia and Japan Airlines business class. And I think it was super cheap. And that's like an 8-hour flight. I think it was only 30,000 points when I redeemed these. And I redeemed them a long time ago. I think I had to move them a couple times because of the pandemic, but we are taking that flight and I am so excited for the all-you-can-eat sushi buffet that is supposedly the best thing ever in the Japan Airlines lounge. So that's what I spent my Alaska Miles on. They go super far. 1 sign-up bonus, got 2 people, 8 hours of business class, and I still have a few points left. I'm trying to figure out what to do with those like 20,000 Alaska points.
You should definitely stay up during your flight and enjoy everything that is Japan Airlines catering, because the food is incredible on Japan Airlines. The drinks are incredible. I couldn't sleep on my flights. I just didn't want to. It was so like over the top and enjoyable, and the service is so refined from Japan Airlines, as the Japanese culture is so refined with service. So I hope you love it, and I hope you come back and tell me more about it.
I am going to eat all-you-can-eat sushi in the lounge. I'm going to stay up through the 8 hours of the flight and just eat everything they put in front of me. I'm like, what you got? Ramen, sushi, Japanese jiggly cheesecake, and then I'm just going to like step out of the plane in Malaysia and be like, I'm good for the week. I don't need to eat anything while I'm here, which would be a shame because Malaysian food is also fantastic, but I will let you all know how it goes. I'm very excited for this.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about it.
I hear another thing that you can do with Alaska Miles is also fly Iceland Air, which this is the only type of points currency that I know of that you can use to fly Iceland Air. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I really want to travel to Iceland. Usually I just tell them, oh, go on United. But if you do, for some reason, want to really experience Iceland Air, then I think Alaska Miles are the only way you can do that.
That's really interesting. I don't know if you can use JetBlue points to fly. I think at one point you could use JetBlue points to fly Iceland Air, but I don't think that's a popular redemption option. I've certainly never tried it myself, but very interesting that you could, use Alaska Miles to fly Iceland Air. I'm guessing if you want a nonstop from Chicago or New York or wherever you're based out of, and you want to fly direct to Reykjavik, I guess there's not that worse ways to get to Iceland, right?
Yeah, I flew direct from Reykjavik back to Denver one time back when we lived in Colorado. It's not my most recommended airline, you guys. Like everyone's like, oh, it seems so great. We should fly Iceland Air. But it was, I think, a 7-8 hour flight, and all we got was a little bottle of water. Like we had to ration our water, and they don't just give you free water. There was like more Icelandic water for purchase. And granted, I had Icelandic water at the airport. It is the best water. I can't even describe like what makes it so good other than it's filtered through a volcano. And so the Icelandic water is very good, but they didn't even have like peanuts or chips or anything. Like usually on a 7-hour flight, and we were flying economy. This was pre-points days, but yeah, there was not a lot of food to be had, and all the food in the airport was super expensive because again, didn't have lounge access. This was pre-points days. So, I mean, if I were flying to Iceland again, I think I'd probably just do United or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I would fly one of the main U.S. carriers that all of them nowadays, with the popularity of Iceland, they all offer flights to Iceland. So I flew Delta to Iceland, and from New York, it was only a 5-hour flight, but even we got snacks and some water. So definitely Iceland Air. What's up with that?
Yeah. And WOW isn't even a thing anymore.
No, it's not, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I wanted to fly WOW. Those fares that we were seeing for WOW, not even the intro fares, just year-round fares were incredible. Like $89 one way to Iceland from Orlando, nonstop. Like it was just insane. But I guess that That low budget carrier model wasn't sustainable for WoW. But I remember Iceland. Iceland's still a very hot destination and a wonderful place. But I remember when Iceland was just getting really, really as a hot premier destination for travelers, how everybody was trying to get there. So, but I agree with you. I think that if you're gonna get to go to Iceland and you're gonna have a long flight, 7 hour flight from wherever you're going to, definitely try to fly an airline that's gonna at least offer you proper snacks and drinks on the plane.
For sure. So, since Alaska miles are a little bit difficult to procure, you could get the credit card. They have a dining portal, they have a shopping portal. I guess you could run stuff through that, but it's still a little bit hard. How can somebody experience something like Japan Airlines or Cathay Pacific if they're like, all right, I've got Chase points, Amex points, City points, Capital One points, Bilt points. Like, I don't have Alaska, but I want to do this. What do I do?
So the good news is that you can redeem all types of points for experiences like that. The question is, do you want to redeem a lot of points or a little points? So Alaska, the reason why it's so valuable is because 50,000 miles to fly one way in business class to Hong Kong from the US in style is absolutely dirt cheap. But there are other loyalty programs that can get you to those experiences as well. You'll probably pay a little bit more in miles, but it's possible. American Airlines miles are also hard to obtain because AA isn't a transfer partner of any of the main credit card issuers except for Bilt Rewards. But even then, American Airlines miles is another way to get there. You can use Avios to get there. You can use Asia miles to get there, which are the mile currency of Cathay Pacific. So a lot of times, Chase and American Express and Citi, their transfer partners you can transfer your points from those credit cards to the transfer partners that they have and redeem those miles for flights to Singapore or Thailand or Japan, flying some of these premier airlines. But you got to know these sweet spots. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll see that there are ways to get there with points and miles besides Alaska miles.
Yeah, with Cathay Pacific, they're a transfer partner with, I think, everybody except for Chase. And you can usually fly something like LAX over to Hong Kong for 70,000 miles in business class. Right. So not too bad.
Not too bad at all. Yeah. I mean, and similar to Alaska, like I've flown Japan Airlines to Japan twice, and it's been with American Airlines miles, not Alaska miles. So American Airlines miles, I've accrued them sort of the same way. Besides flying American, which I do often since I'm in Miami. I'm in Miami, so the hub is here. One of our hubs is here. One of the hubs is here, I should say. But accruing the AA miles with credit card signups is also a way to do it. And if you're looking to potentially take one of these big trips abroad to Asia or wherever that may be, whether it's like you want to go to the Middle East, or you want to fly Qatar Q Suites, or you want to fly to Hong Kong or fly Cathay Pacific Business, you should start planning your points process, your points strategy about 2 years in advance to accrue the right currency. So it's just important because you're going to need a lot of those points to amass those amount of points so that you can afford to take these, to redeem them for these really cool experiences. So definitely something to consider if you're looking to fly with. Doesn't have to be Alaska, it could be any other currency, but knowing which currency you need and then accruing them in advance is really critical for planning your trip to in style, in business or first class, to Asia or Africa or the Middle East or wherever.
Since Japan Airlines is a one world partner, can you use British Airways to fly that too? Do they have partner availability?
They do, but because British Airways operates what's called a distance-based award chart. So British Airways will charge you an X amount of miles depending on the distance between destinations. So you can certainly use British Airways Avios, but a flight from the US to Japan will be a lot of miles because of the fact that the distance is so far. They're going to charge you a lot more than you would pay if you were using, let's say, Alaska miles or American miles.
Yeah, so if you wanted to use British Airways on a transfer partner, that kind of goes back to what we said at the start of use it for those short hops, Miami to the Caribbean, like little short hops domestically, right. That's going to be a better use of British Airways, or hopping around Europe because all of those are such short flights.
There you go. And Europe I think Europe's sweet spots is still 7,500 one way, whereas in US to anywhere it's 9,000. So 7,500 one way to go from like London to Frankfurt. is not bad. It's not bad, and it's also sometimes if those inter-Europe flights are expensive, or you don't want to fly some of those like Easy Jets or Ryanairs, then certainly using Avios for those short haul flights or those medium haul flights in Europe is the way to go.
I prefer trains, honestly, because they have
Me
them
too.
in Europe, and it's just better for the environment. It takes less time once you factor in like all the airports and stuff. And obviously, I like to fly. I like airports. We have lounge access, but even like as nice as those experiences are, I would still rather just like get on a train, see the countryside, not have to go through 5 levels of security and have to get my passport everywhere. Just on a train, looking at some mountains. That's great.
Yeah, I'm exactly like you, Julia. If I could train travel all over the US instead of taking flights, I would do that too. Even if it takes a little bit longer to get from point A to point B, I love train travel. It's my favorite mode of transportation. I rarely take it because unless I'm in Europe, but I'm with you. And plus, on top of that, train travel usually means that you're being dropped off from city point A to city point B versus having to arrive at an airport and take an Uber or a taxi all the way to your destination. So big points for trains here as well.
I really wish that airports weren't always just such a far distance from wherever you're actually trying to go. We joked in Denver that the Denver airport is in Kansas because it's so far east from, like, you land and you're like, where are the mountains? Where
Right.
is anything? It's another hour to get into town. And with Las Vegas, I don't know why we don't just have a train that goes from the airport to the Strip and to downtown Vegas. If only there was a way to shuttle the 90% of people who are taking the exact same route every time, the traffic wouldn't be such a bad deal. Same with
Right.
LAX. If I had a train to get to LAX from Las Vegas instead of doing a positioning flight each time, that would be clutch.
That'd be cool. Are you going to be flying into Haneda or for Narita for Tokyo?
We will be going into Narita for
Okay.
this upcoming one.
Well, Narita's a good example of how far it is from the city. I mean, it is like an hour and change, hour and a half sometimes with traffic if you're taking a bus or a car. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I wish airports were a little bit closer to the city, but that's why we love train travel so much. You don't have to trek the whole way. You're already in the city. You get a quick Uber ride to your Airbnb or your hotel, and you can start your vacation off on the right foot.
Absolutely. So the advice of the day is like, why are we even flying? Let's just take trains whenever we can. Why are we here?
Right. Don't redeem points for Amtrak. They'll just like pay cash for Amtrak. No, I'm just kidding. Some people might say that that's the route. I have friends that are big time Amtrak travelers, mostly in the Northeast and the Mid Atlantic, and they have the Amtrak card literally because that's the best way to get around, and they prefer train travel. So if you're a train buff out there and you prefer train travel and it makes efficiency sense for you, then go for it and look at the Amtrak card as an option.
That whole using JetBlue miles to travel on Amtrak, that died, right? You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore. That died like I think last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was a little known hack for anybody who wanted to use points on the train. Was JetBlue was the only way to do that, but no longer. So with everything that you've learned about all these like lesser known point system, whether it's Alaska or American Airlines, which we know about, but it's hard to redeem, or Amtrak, or really any of these things, what would you say is your number one piece of points and miles advice for listeners today that we can fit on an Instagram quote card?
Sure. If you're starting off and you want to start accruing travel rewards, start with one card. Don't necessarily listen to friends or ask people. Really ask yourself, what are your everyday spending habits? What are your patterns? Are you spending a lot on groceries and gas? Are you spending more on eating out, dining out, and Netflix? If so, look at some card options that align with your spending habits so that you can earn bonus points on those everyday expenditures. And then you can analyze which card you want to sign up for to accrue those points and miles, and focus on that. I think long term, a lot of times folks want to think about like big sign up bonuses, but then the cards aren't necessarily aligning with their lifestyle. So it's critically important that you, for long term reasons, that you align yourself with a card that actually helps you earn lots of points because that's what you're spending on all day, every day, anyways. And then you'll see that your points balances will grow exponentially, and then you'll be able to start thinking about redeeming them for some awesome travel experiences. But definitely don't use them for statement credits or for gift cards. If you're in the market for a travel rewards card, you should be redeeming it for travel experiences.
Great advice. And speaking of great advice, can you give a shout out to somebody else on the internet that you would recommend listeners follow for even more points and miles tips?
Sure. I recommend you guys follow Stella Sean. She's a colleague of mine that was a colleague of mine at the Points Guy. She's now a colleague of mine and one of my clients upgraded points. I'll give you guys her information, but Stella's a great follow. Right now she's in Korea with her family for 3 weeks, visiting family in South Korea and in Japan. But she's traveling all over the world using points and miles, and she's an awesome follow on socials. You can follow her at Stella J. Sean on Instagram.
Perfect. And where can we find you on the internet?
Sure, you can find me at Double Duty Daddy, at Double Duty Daddy on Instagram and Twitter.
It didn't turn into Triple Duty Daddy when the youngest one was born?
I got verified, so once I got verified, I couldn't make any changes to my name. I wanted to change it to something more like travel focused, but the Double Duty stuck, and that's what kind of I became sort of known for. So I'm gonna keep it as Double Duty Daddy.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again, Juan, so much. This was such a valuable episode for everybody.
Thanks for having me. Thanks so much, Julia.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards mentioned in today's episode piqued your interest, please check out the links in the show notes for more information on any of the cards. Also, if you apply for a card using the links on that page, I may receive a commission too, so please and thank you. P.S. I hear the links work better in Internet Explorer or Safari, and sometimes the credit card applications tend to glitch out in Chrome. Additionally, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to make even more travel hacking friends, please sign up for the Patreon to access our monthly masterclass hangouts. We dive deep into a particular points program each month, and you'll get to ask all of your travel hacking questions and enjoy being around other people who enjoy points and miles just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts to sign up to be on the invite list. Take care and happy travels!